They say I walk like a king, talk like a king. You can act around now, say the same thing. They chasing the fame, they all want the name.
It's safe to say when Avengers released roughly around this time last year, it didn't release too well. Look, people didn't really like it. The combat was repetitive. There are only two modes of traversal, with either flying around or running and jumping. Maybe swinging a grappling hook from your wrist, but that's really it. Then Avengers released two DLCs with Kate Bishop and Hawkeye, and now we've got the third DLC, which is Avengers' largest yet in War for Wakanda. But is this the DLC that changes the game? Sadly, no. War for Wakanda dropped a couple of days ago, and it is a continuation from the previous DLCs. That is to say, it takes place after the events of the main campaign and the two previous DLCs, but also, the War for Wakanda DLC is a bit of a standalone story too, so if you want to skip past the previous DLC or the main campaign, you definitely can. On top of the expansion, we've also got an updated UI, so the game's not a giant mess, and you can bulk dismantle gear. Anyways, Wakanda is under attack by Claw, Crossbones, and AIM, which brings the Avengers to Wakanda to put a stop to the attack, and it brings Black Panther out to play. War for Wakanda not only introduces the Black Panther, but it also introduces Claw, Crossbones, but also Okoye, Shuri, and the city and jungle of Wakanda. This adds a new biome to explore, new enemies to fight, and of course a new hero to play as, Black Panther. Let's start off with the hero, as that might be the reason why you've checked out this video. As you'd expect, the character of Black Panther, he doesn't fly around like Thor or Iron Man and is a merge between Captain America with his strength and Black Widow with his movement and agility. Panther's main attacks are a mixture of quick and heavy attacks with his claws, as you might expect, and one of his main standard attacks has him pounce on enemies, pinning them to the ground and slashing away at them like a horny widow. Just like every character in Avengers, Black Panther 2 has a offensive, defensive, and ultimate ability alongside their standard ranged attacks. Panther's range attack have him quickly equip and throw vibranium daggers, which he can quickly throw or charge up for a larger dagger that spins around a bit like Captain America's shield. This ability, just like all abilities, can be upgraded by using skill points you earn by leveling up. If you've only seen the MCU movies too, Black Panther will be somewhat familiar as well. His intrinsic ability is a buff similar to that of the Odin Force by using the suit's kinetic energy. This can be used to increase your damage output, auto block and deflect attacks if you parry them in the right order, and allow Black Panther to damage through some shields. T'Challa's support ability is the Kimoyo Beads, which can target enemies or allies, providing them with additional support or destroying incoming projectiles and shooting enemies or dealing damage over time. These again can be upgraded too, so they heal, but to be honest, multiple times while playing I'd activate them to get a healing boost and it did absolutely nothing. His offensive ability is King's Mercy, where Panther summons a vibranium spear just like the Dora Milaje use and throws it at an enemy. Now this spear acts like Thor's hammer, as you can pin enemies to the wall and even line up multiple enemies too. It does come in handy when there are a couple of enemies surrounding you, and lining them up and hitting them with a spear shot is pretty satisfying. Sadly though, the spear doesn't work on every enemy type like giant mech units or the new spider enemies. Black Panther's ultimate ability is Bast's Chosen, where T'Challa calls upon the Panther goddess Bast to summon a spectral panther. Now this buffs Black Panther with extra strength and durability. Now Black Panther can also use supercharged attacks without using his intrinsic ability as well with this. Bast's Chosen can also be upgraded to deal more damage, to heal and revive anyone around you including yourself, or to summon a spectral panther and two members of the Dora Milaje. Thankfully, Black Panther's abilities are unique and they're not as boring as some of the other characters' abilities. Now not only do we get a new hero, but we also have a new biome to visit in Wakanda. And while it's stunning to look at, and yes, it's large in size and it has its own unique version of loot boxes and turrets and healing boxes, the developers have gone above and beyond in creating this world. However, it's still just a biome like any other. Yes, it might be bigger and prettier than the others with new enemy variants, but it's still the same. I've said it once before, and I'll say it again. Avengers should have been an open world game like the PlayStation 4 Spider-Man game. What is great about this DLC though is the production value gone into the DLC. Now what do I mean by that? Well, for starters, the voice acting is pretty fucking great. We got Christopher Judge, famous from Stargate and the current voice actor for Kratos in God of War, acting as T'Challa here. And it is pretty solid.
I recognize the Avengers as allies of Wakanda.
Thank you. I hope we do you justice.
You will have to get used to keeping up with me.
The developers even got the dialect coach from the Black Panther film on board, and all the voice acting here and each character is unique and they don't sound like they're doing an impression. Now, don't get me wrong here, nothing will ever beat Chadwick Boseman as the Black Panther, but Judge does a pretty good job of it. We've also got Erica Luttrell from Westworld Apex Legends and Dishonored, Deborah Wilson from Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Dave Fennoy from The Walking Dead games as Zarovari, and Steve Blum as Claw. The sound design here too is great. As I just booted up the DLC, I was running through the jungles as Black Panther and the music was perfect. While it's not loud and over the top, its perfect atmospheric sounds and quiet music was beautiful for the area of Wakanda. But then we get into the gameplay itself and it's still the same as everything that came before it.
Just don't freeze.
What are you talking about? I never freeze.
If it is any comfort, you did not lead Advanced Idea Mechanics to our doorstep.
This DLC is basically Malibu Stacy with a new hat.
But she's got a new hat.
There are new enemy variants here with 2 spider enemies, one that's a little scout that's small and generally runs in some packs, but they also have surprisingly a lot of health for a small enemy. Then there's also the larger variant, the spider hunters, which are proper right pains in the arse. They have a huge health bar and are basically a mini boss fight in their own right. They also spit web at you, pull you towards them, and then knock you on the ground. There's enemies that are resistant to attacks unless you use Black Panther's intrinsic abilities, which can break through their shields. There's an enemy variant that uses sonic weapons to stun you, but also sets out sonic drones and grenades that blur the shit out of your screen so you can't see a damn thing. Honestly, the screen blur is so bad, I imagine this is what people who like The Last Jedi actually see. Now, the biome and DLC is made for Black Panther. What do I mean by that? Well, there are moments inside a vibranium mine where you'll need to jump on platforms that disappear after a set amount of time. And yeah, they make sense for Black Panther and Captain America and Black Widow, but if you're playing as Thor or Iron Man, you can fly straight through these areas, no problem at all. The core story element of the DLC 2 is roughly 3 to 5 hours-ish long, depending on how long it takes you to get past the last boss fight, which is pretty cheap and weird. The first boss fight is against Crossbones as Black Panther, and basically you need to deal damage to Crossbones, and when he's had enough, he'll pop a shield around him, exposing 2 generators on a tank that he's protecting. Now this boss fight is fine, but it feels like you should have been playing as the Avengers and then Black Panther comes in to assist and appears in a badass way. And then we play as Black Panther. A bit like how they did with Kate Bishop. The last boss fight, look, I'm gonna spoil it here, so warning if you don't want to know about it. Anyways, Claw turns into a giant vibranium-infused monster with vibranium, and you need to take him out, so he gets shrunk down to a normal size and then he traps Black Panther inside of a bubble, and if he hits you, he deals a fuckload of damage, and if he hits you in a combo, you're basically fucked. So you need to manage Vibranium, Sonic, Claw, and Crossbones who's trying to bomb Wakanda. There is a tiny ass timer at the bottom of the screen that the game doesn't point out, and you need to attack Claw and Crossbones until Crossbones has had enough and puts up a shield around him, which removes shields around floating turrets that are attacking the city. It sounds like a lot, and it is, and it took me a couple attempts to do because it's pretty hard and it's pretty cheap. If you don't focus on Crossbones so he drops his shield around the turrets, then the turrets destroy the city. Now destroying a turret adds 75 seconds to the timer. It's a chaotic boss fight that had me frustrated and confused, and in some instances the dodging button wasn't work or registering and I was taking additional damage. At one point in the campaign I died from 2 enemies hitting me and knocking me over. My character was constantly flinching and died, and I got pretty fucking upset with that.
What are you talking about? I never freeze.
But what was the most broken about this DLC is Black Panther's attack, the Pounce. By holding the heavy attack button, Panther will pounce and land on an enemy and slash away at their health. And you can do this for every enemy in the game unless it is a proper boss fight. Upgrade the Pounce attack and you can even jump onto mech units and giant spiders and slash away at their health. Sure, they'll knock you off when their health reaches about 50%, but you can immediately jump back on. Enemies with disorienting grenades so your screen looks like someone put beer goggles on you? No problem at all, just pounce on them. The only way Black Panther gets off is if he jumps off, if he does a heavy attack where he bounces off the enemy, or if another enemy attacks Black Panther while he's in a pounce. Thankfully though, 99.9% of the time, my AI Avengers, and no, not these AI Avengers, but the AI team, distracted the enemies. War for Wakanda DLC is impressive in regards to its character design, its outfits and environment. It looks great. Hell, after I played this DLC, I rewatched the Black Panther movie and Civil War and bought myself a Black Panther hot toy. Shit, this DLC released on the same day as the What If Black Panther episode became Star-Lord. But if you're hoping that the War for Wakanda DLC completely changes the game, not really. It's a new character, new biome, updated menus so it's a bit easier on the eyes and you're not flipping through 1,000 pages, but it's the same game. It's still great visuals and attention to detail and voice acting, and the new social hub of Wakanda is great. But it's still the same game. If you're enjoying Avengers or you own Avengers, then check out War for Wakanda's DLC because it's free for all players. The only thing you pay for are Black Panther skins or the challenge cards. I'm curious as to what DLC character is next and whether or not at some point the developers will either stop on Marvel Avengers or, just like Destiny, maybe we'll get a sequel to Avengers that's set in an open world, and I'm never going to stop that argument. There is no end credit scene here for a tease for the next DLC of what's coming next, but the developers have said they still plan on releasing Spider-Man this year and it's still going to be exclusive for PlayStation. But hopefully we get another DLC like this in the future. War for Wakanda doesn't completely fix the game, but it does extend its shelf life.
It is mine! And I will happily go through you to take it back.